Welcome to our next adventure with Chemology 411, a podcast about anything and everything. Kim and her guests will take you behind the scenes, behind the story, or behind the bar. So sit back. Make sure your seatbelt is fastened, tray table in its upright position, all carry-ons stored under the seats. But for this adventure, electronic devices must remain on, as we are ready to take off on our next adventure. Introducing Kim Schultz and Chemology 411.
Welcome to episode 2 of Chemology 411. Our topics this episode will include Snoop Dogg visits KU and then KU apologizes. Our new segment, Really? Things that just make me say, really? And then we're going to talk about why so many people are interested in starting nonprofits. My name is Kim Schultz, and I am the adventure coordinator for this show. Let's say hi to my co-host, Tyson Harley.
Hello, Kim. Shall I get buckled in, adventure coordinator?
You might. It might get a little rocky. We might hear some turbulence.
I'll tell you what. Can you fly me out away from this winter stuff? Oh, no, that's right. No, I'm wearing my cute sweater.
Yeah, exactly.
My scarf. I got to wear my new wardrobe, so it's all great. I'm in a great mood. No, wait, I'm a guy. I don't care.
No, you don't. Did you see the memes that I sent you? There was a couple memes that where people are just like, no, I finally get to wear my fall outfit. And
That's what we were saying last week, right? It's like, bam! Who's on it? Who's on it?
You're exactly.
Tyson is right on it. So yeah, and I realized the other thing is I've got like a shoulder injury, so I'm like, I actually spent the entire summer not being able to go throw a frisbee, and not being able to shoot a basket or throw a football, and I think that's why I'm especially annoyed. So maybe I just need to go buy some cute sweaters or something.
And some boots. Boots. You need boots. And then like scarves. Like
Yeah.
I like people buy me scarves. I'm thinking I have never worn a scarf in my life. And so like I have a drawer full of scarves that people are like, oh, this one would look really cute.
Oh yeah, I was cute knit hats.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Knit caps. I could wear that.
Oh yeah. I do like the guys that wear like the little beanies. They're just freaking cute. Like they are cute.
What is that? The beanies are just like the old man.
Like the stocking caps. They call them like a beanie cap or whatever. So they're not like all the way down over their ears. They're just kind of like right there on their head.
You mean the ones like if you're like work at a coffee shop and you're supposed to like I look like a barista. Those hats are different ones. Those caps.
More like I don't have any hair and I want to cover up my head because it's cold. They're kind of a new one.
Okay, where they don't even pull it down.
They don't really pull it down very far,
Yeah,
but those are cute. I mean, guys have a fall style.
I don't. All right, so
today,
let's get to it.
So 10/10/2019, 29 years ago, I was in the hospital.
Oh no!
I know.
What happened?
I had just given birth to my daughter.
Well, that changes everything.
I know.
That was actually pretty good.
It was awesome.
All right.
Well, and it's funny because there's like different times in your life that you just remember a particular thing. And I can remember eating pork chops on October 9th, 1990, and then starting to have contractions at like 2 o'clock in the morning. And then going to the hospital, and the doctor said, oh, she's fine, send her home. And the nurse came in and said, if you can just wait it out for like an hour and a half, another doctor's going to come on, and then he might keep you. So let's have you walk up and down the hallways, which kind of gets things going, because evidently I wasn't going fast enough. And I said to her, my due date is October 10th, and I will leave with the baby on October 10th. So I don't know what we're doing, but I'm not going home. And within like an hour, I walked, I got sick. It started my contractions, and she was born at 9:15. And they literally at 5 o'clock in the morning, the doctor said, send her home. And my baby was born at 9:15.
Wait a second. So the 9:15
a.m.
Okay, and at 5, someone else had said no.
At 5,
okay.
at 5 a.m., the doctor said she
So it
doesn't
was
sound
the night
like she's
before
ready.
that you had the
Yeah, 2 a.m.
2
a.m.
overnight. It was like a
Yeah.
Denny's or something type of situation.
Yeah, exactly. It was like the bar closed, and I thought I'm gonna have a baby, except I wasn't at a bar. I was sleeping. So anyway, it's kind of hard to believe that she's 29
Here's
years
what's
old.
crazy for you, is that now she can do what my standard thing is my standard, almost dad joke, except it's not a dad joke, is, hey, happy anniversary of your 29th birthday, because that way you don't have to say her. And now she can actually do that.
She
or
can.
has to.
Yeah.
If she cares. I mean, I know 30 didn't bother me, and even 35 didn't bother me. 40 bothered me a little
It
bit.
did?
Just a little.
50 didn't even bother me. Like, I was like, I'm alive.
Because you're made of the matter of the sun or something.
Well, and that everybody thinks I'm really young. So I still get the I'm 35 years old. And then I'm like, and this is my daughter. She's 9.
Don't make me do the deputy dog impression as far as me versus you. All right, so anyway,
All
yeah,
right.
that's cool. 10-10-19.
10-10-90.
29 years ago.
So next year she's going to turn 30 years old, and on my 30th birthday, I did a 5 keg party. And my daughter will not be doing a 5 keg party.
I totally was about to hear a 5K, and then you finished the word. I'm like, nice, good for you, healthy. Oh, no, not at all.
No. No. I was actually going through my divorce at that time, so it was party central.
Keg, maybe that's more healthy when you're going through.
I think so.
And worried about exercise and stuff. Mental health.
Exactly. So, as I said at the top of the show, at one of the KU games, and I try to keep these topics. I try to keep these topics so that they don't get outdated. And this is just something that is now probably on the national news. I don't know why, but KU, which is the team that I root for.
Wait, what does KU stand for?
It's the University of Kansas.
Chemology 411.
It's the really.
Why isn't it Kentucky University?
Because I don't live in Kentucky.
You
I don't
you
know,
hear
what
some
is it?
people say, shouldn't that be U of K?
You would think so, because I always say Kansas University. It's actually the University of Kansas.
Anyway, I just wanted to make sure some people knew, so go ahead.
So anyway, KU basketball, we are awesome. And I think we've won some games in football this year. I was pretty impressed with that. You're the sports person. I don't really watch sports. I just know that I look really cute in blue and red.
Those are good. That's good colors on women, because they also look very cute in Royals gear.
Yes. I love my Royals gear. Actually, a really side note of how I became a KU fan. In 7th grade, we had Spirit Day, and my friend Judy Litton and I went to White Lakes Mall, which was our mall at the time, and we went to the t-shirt shop, and we were going to wear, because we had to pick a team. And so we went in and we said, okay, so what are these teams that we need to pick from? And the girl goes, we have KU and we have K-State. Neither one of us had a clue what it was. And she goes, I like purple. And I said, well, I like red and blue. And so I became a KU fan. And that's
Simple
it.
as that.
And I haven't changed since. And so it's okay. I went to KU for a year. That's a whole nother story. But anyway, so at the end of this basketball game, they announced.
Not game.
It's like a cheer thing or something.
What do they call that? Late night at the Fog.
Oh, it was late night at the Fog.
It's the big kickoff of. In fact, KU was one of the first schools to do this. Now a lot of schools do it. It's like a student and whoever wants to come, just kind of a hype night, because
Right.
your basketball team's gonna. Season's about to start.
Okay.
I think they might play a little, but it's mostly just for fun and a hype night. They don't
Okay.
play anybody.
Right.
And they just have a lot of fun and maybe introduce a team. I'm not exactly sure. I've never been to one, but I know of it. And it's just kind of the hype night. And Roy Williams did it before he went to North Carolina. So anyway,
Kinda like
that's
a
what
pep
it was.
assembly.
Late night at the Fog. Yeah, kind of
Yeah,
like a pep
people
assembly.
stand in line all day to get into this. All right,
Mm-hmm.
so they announced that Snoop Dogg was going to be at this event, and because of who Snoop Dogg is, And if anyone doesn't know Snoop Dogg,
You need to Google
you
him.
need to Google, because I mean, I
Welcome
loved him
to-
on Law and Order.
Welcome to, welcome to the 21st century after you Google him. So.
Anyway, Snoop Dogg, I grew up with Snoop Dogg. I like Snoop Dogg. I like all kinds of music. But anyway, they put him last because being responsible parents, you would know that this is probably not something that you would want your kids to listen to. You can now get up and you can leave. You can stay. You can do whatever you want. But this is at the end. And what I didn't realize when I saw the hype after this performance is that I went and watched it, and it was over 30 minutes long.
Just
it was
his performance?
Just his
Yeah.
performance. And so the controversy of this, if you did not hear, was that they brought out polls, and the DJ comes out, and then the smoke is out there, and then the coach comes out and talks. You can't really understand it on YouTube, but he talks a little bit, and then Snoop comes out and does a 30-minute show. Now, these people did not pay to go to a Snoop Dogg concert, which I'm pretty sure costs a pretty penny. I mean, I don't even know if he tours. I would not know.
I would guess he still does at least a little, but I don't know.
So anyway, but the girls, fully clothed in their little outfits, were dancing on the poles, and he was saying the N-word, which I believe is kind of politically correct when it comes into the rap
Nike?
songs.
Oh, okay. Now I got it. Go ahead.
That might be the N-word they were talking about, since I think Adidas, they were talking about all of that controversy stuff.
Yeah,
but
we'll mention that.
he was saying that he said the F word, and I'm not trying to keep it clean. I'm just saying this is kind of how they talked about it in the media. All right. So I was thinking, I thought one song. And so I went and I watched the entire thing. It was freaking awesome. I would have loved to have been there. The crowd was powerful. The crowd was in it. He was in the audience. He was with the students. This was a concert for college students. It wasn't a church concert. It wasn't at a high school. It was for college students. And all of a sudden, KU releases an apology.
It just got slanted a certain way, and once they found the slant, see, my little no evidence behind it conspiracy theory that I'll take 20 seconds on is that Adidas was the first a company that started getting popped for these payment schemes recently. Everybody knows college athletes are getting paid at the most elite schools. And then Nike also got popped, but all of a sudden their story gets buried on like Yahoo Sports and not even up there for 6 hours. I'm not kidding you. Straight up emails that talk about paying a very particular person a specific amount of money. So I kind of wonder whether Nike, being a more powerful company in the United States, didn't have a little lean on some reporters. And why don't you cover that? Isn't that awful? Isn't that outrageous? Because also Snoop Dogg threw money. It was Snoop Dogg money.
He had a
and
gun.
Some of it hit Bill. Like, oh, it's bad. What do they say now? Not perception, but that's the word. Bad. Something onyx. Like your eyes. It's just bad.
Right.
Anyway, that was supposedly bad because Bill Self is riddled with a scandal right now about possibly paying athletes. It's like, and then Snoop Dogg throws. Well, that's also a rap meme, basically. Just money flying.
So, like, he went and he made the gun, and then he had these bills printed that he does at all the concerts. They literally have his face on it.
Yeah.
They're Snoop Dogg money, and it was in a gun that when he shot it, it blows it out. Just like, like how you do your hand, you're like,
Yeah.
Raining money. That's what it was, raining money, with his pimp song and his stripper song and all that stuff. It went with the show. And so, yeah, I heard about that. They were like, that's just throwing it in their face.
Yeah.
And so that kind of was like, really? And so then they were bringing up donors. Like, the donors were just irate. Well, but don't you want to entertain the students, the one who are paying the tuition and the one who are there to, I mean, it was...
They're not 14. They're
No,
18
these are
to
18
22
to 99.
24. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of different students there. But I believe my thing was they were like, hey, maybe we could get Snoop Dogg. And they're like, oh, no, let's ask. And then Snoop Dogg goes, sure, I'll do it. And they were like, hey, Carla, write up an apology letter because this isn't going to get good. And they were like, we asked him to not do any of that.
Yeah, I mean, how hard did they ask him to? Yeah, there's definitely a narrative out there that, well, we did not know, or we specifically told him to, be careful, and he didn't necessarily. On the other hand, did he go that overboard because he did a Snoop Dogg concert? It's not like the women were naked. A. B. Ever since the beginning of time, women have danced to music to add to the entertainment value of it.
Right.
Or for you and me, ever since Solid Gold. As I said before the show, that is a definite confirmation of my heterosexuality watching that show.
I love Solid Gold. I was going to be a Solid Gold dancer.
And then later on, it was the Fly Girls.
The Fly Girls, yeah.
Live in color.
Yeah.
So, it's not... since the rock and roll video, since early MTV, you got the hot girl in the video for no other reason than that she's hot. And the dance element is a real entertainment aspect of it.
But have these people been to, in Lawrence, Kansas, they have the street, it's called Mass Street, which is kind of like their college. It's like the downtown bars and stuff. Have these people been to the bars to see what these students wear to those bars?
Right.
I mean, definitely they don't have their fall collection on when they're going out. They're in their little tight shirts and their little Daisy Duke shorts and their little cute outfits and so these girls were not dressed any differently. And then to say, well, because they were dancing on a pole, I mean, they could have been laying on the ground and grinding on the ground. It's called dancing. And so once again, we're like, burn those books. Don't let those people dance. Or like Elvis. Remember when Elvis came out?
I mean, no, but...
Well,
yes, everybody knows the pop culture ether aspect.
He's shaking his hips.
Oh, no.
No.
Well, think about this. How many years has it been since literally Pink has been performing like a trapeze artist? That's not the right word. An aerial artist.
She is.
And very thinly clad, showing off her gams and her legs and her stomach and everything else. Mm-hmm. It's nothing new. So it is funny that people try to do this fake outrage because it's the right thing to be fake outraged about right now. Reminds me of something else I'm not thinking off the top of my head, but there's another sports thing out. Give me just a moment. If I can't think of it, we'll drop it.
Okay.
We can drop it. I can't think of it. I think of it later.
All right. Well, my thing is I thought that was absurd, and it just it goes to national news, and I personally thought the performance was awesome. I don't want to talk about something I didn't know about. I didn't know about it when I was disagreeing with a couple of my friends, and I was like, do you sit outside in your chair and tell people to get off your lawn? When did we become that age that we are so insulted by something that there was nothing wrong with it? The kids are going to hear the words. First of all, leave if you don't like it. The college kids say the curse words. If you like the kind of music that Snoop Dogg does, then you are used to the language in those songs. And I was
that and rap's been around for a little while. That's a thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're aware.
Yeah.
So no one's surprised.
Well, and there's and Snoop's gangster rap. Like he's not even like hip hop rap. He's like gangster rap. He's a pimp. He talks about all this stuff. And do I agree with like the messages and stuff that he does? Not all the time, but then again, it's called entertainment. It's pure entertainment. It's a song. So, freedom.
I think is a great get. I mean, I don't remember them saying they had any big artist, and I could have missed it for Late Night at the Fog before. So it's a great get, and it's just fake outrage. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
I know the latest thing. I'll just touch on it super quick. This indignancy of the NBA commissioner supposedly apologizing for an NBA owner trying to support the Taiwan movement in China and China being pushing back. It's very standards change at the drop of a hat as to whether we're free speech or not free speech and all this stuff. They constantly change. That's the other one that kind of reminds me of in sports, where sports media is not made to analyze real topics, and when they try to do, they always fail. They're not that smart.
Right, yeah. And I was reading through some of the comments from all over the place, and most people were like, "What did you think you were going to get?" I mean, that kind of made me feel better. But then there'd be a couple people who were, I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, like you really put that on Facebook? Like, how old are you? And like, where do you live to be so close-minded?" So,
and that's coming from people in the Midwest saying this right now.
Right.
That means something.
Yeah. So anyway, all right. So the next section that we're going to is our "Oh really." Oh really. So
it ends up being a little related.
Yeah. So a family is upset that their child got their picture taken with the character from Despicable Me, Gru. Now, this is a huge costume, like the big costume. It's not
Is Gru the big guy?
It's the main character.
Okay.
It's the main character, and so it's like this big furry costume, and all of a sudden in the picture, his fingers are in the OK sign. He literally only has like 4 fingers. He doesn't even have 5 fingers. It's a freaking costume. It's a cartoon character. And the article, which we'll put the article in the notes for the show so that you can see what I'm talking about. But they mentioned that it was a veteran family and that Universal was taking care of it, and that this person no longer worked at Universal. Which, in my mind, he's in a costume. No one even knows who this person is. So like, how would you know? And when did it become a thing? So I kind of looked it up. And remember we were talking about memes? Okay, so this started...
last episode, just the idea of bad memes, irritating memes, leading down the wrong path type thing. Go ahead.
So according to the website, and I found a few things, and you can look it up yourself, but according to the website, Know Your Meme, as a prank, 4chan users in 2017 launched a campaign to flood social media with posts linking the OK hand gesture to white power movement.
Yeah.
Really?
So it could have just been planted as a fake, as a troll, basically. And it has a common meaning, so they're really falling for it. Because here's the problem, right? I mean, we have for about 10 years now taken someone's offense as to taken their interpretation of what you did as more important than what you actually intended.
Right.
If there was no intent that, what's almost is still used widely and should be, because we see the background for this is okay, good job.
Yeah,
that's
it means
probably
acceptance.
Probably what he meant, unless you have better evidence for it.
Or he just had his hand laying on a child's shoulder because he's in a big hot costume in Florida and he's dying there. But when they did the meme, it was more political because they kept showing people at the White House. And the White House, that's the white supremacists in the White House. And so some of the people were arguing like, this is a thing, it's the gangs. And I was like, if you look at the data, it was the White House. And so now if gang members are using the OK sign, how do they let people know everything's okay? Because now it means white power, or I don't even understand how that would even possibly work. So anyway, I can't believe that someone could possibly lose their job. Okay? So what the hell? So now memes are true, but live videos of someone saying or doing something is fake news. Let me say that again. We are literally taking a meme, which are just words on a square, and we're saying that is the truth, but yet we can have live video of somebody talking and the media will say that's fake news.
Yeah, I still can't believe they fired this person.
Yeah, he no longer worked for them. Like I said, he's in a costume. Who was he? I mean, they might have been like...
It's not just, okay, yeah, we could see your mistake here, but from here on out, our policy is to be careful around this symbol.
Right.
Alleged symbol that was probably made up. Yeah, that's crazy. So
one of the things, that's one of the reasons I don't like the memes that put out false information, that are just trying to start up a fight. If you want someone to think, like there's a sign for white privilege, make up a sign that's not what we all use every single day. The sign that I hate, and I will say this all the time, is I hate thumbs up. I hate the thumbs up. I don't know what it is about it. It just bothers me. I hate thumbs up. So you're in a conversation with somebody and you get a text message with a thumbs up, and then that's just kind of like...
Your blood boils.
I do. I don't know why. I like me and the thumbs up. But you know what? I'm not going to do a meme on it and say that the thumbs up means, and put something bad on it so people will quit using thumbs up.
It's the meme version. And a quick aside, my sister hated it when the Facebook smiles started bobbing their head back and forth. She's like, crazy. I think they may have stopped that. But anyway, it's a Facebook version of these fake sites, but not The Onion, where it's really obviously fake. It takes something and just hopes somebody runs with something false just to be mean.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with 4chan. It's just throwing something out there, see if people run with it just to be mean and laugh about it.
Right. And for somebody to go that far with it. So I was thinking, maybe we should start up our own memes, say like fist bumps or the sign of the atheist. Could you imagine? And people go to fist bump and you're like, you don't believe in God? Okay, maybe we turn hugs into pro-choice supporters. So someone gives you a hug and you're just like, I agree. And they'll be just like, what do you mean? I believe that there's a choice. No, but I'm pro-life. And you're like, you just hugged me. You just hugged me. So maybe people, that don't like hugs could start that, and they'll just get a little T-shirt that says "Hugs mean you're pro-choice," and you don't have to worry about people hugging you anymore, or about picking your nose in public. It means you're single.
Why do you think it may not be intentional, but it's causal.
I was gonna say, big shocker, you're single.
Thing that makes total sense. And if you just want to stay single, too. Put that on 4chan.
Okay, so just to make myself clear, hate is not a sign. It's not a sign. It's a behavior.
Okay. I didn't do it, just so you know. But...
It's a mindset, but it's not the okay sign. I mean, if it's a gang sign, I'm not around gang members, so I don't get into that stuff. So if I'm in my city and I am at Target and my daughter looks at me from like 4 aisles down and she says, I'm going that way and points, and I say, okay, with my fingers, I'm not supporting white supremacists. I'm just acknowledging.
Guys, this is not catching on. You don't have to be paranoid. All right, let's just avoid that acceptance that it's probably really is that symbol. And let's just go with the idea that most likely people are using it in the innocent sense. So we don't have fist fights.
Well, and this was actually added to a group of their sign, the signals or something. I can't remember which group it was. Yeah. They added it to their signs.
Some of those people go a little over the top on the... Another one that does a similar thing, and they probably throw out the baby with the bathwater at times. Don't get mad at me, people. I'm just saying at the far end, I would be on the Southern Poverty Law Center's list of hate people. Not even hate groups, be like hate people. Tyson Harley. It's like, what? Is that a group?
Is that a group?
Tyson Harleys? The Tyson's Harley? What's the plural of that?
What is that? I don't know what that group is.
So sometimes people, in trying to be advocates for something, they stretch things a bit, and you got
Yeah.
to be careful about that.
Well, we do have some kind of symbols that is just we know. Okay, so the okay sign means everything is we accept it. It's approved. Okay, we get it. But the middle finger, we have that. That's a bad sign. Lord, we don't want to do that. That just means F you. Thumbs up, which always will annoy me. If you go skiing, it means go faster. You have to know that. Or it means also approval. Thumbs down means disapproval. And this gets a big thumbs up for me. All right, guys, let's take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the trend in starting nonprofits.
Ooh, interesting.
It's going to be some good stuff. We'll be back. We are working diligently to get our upcoming clients' commercials recorded so we can use them for this show. If you are a national brand or have an online store, we would love to help promote your products and or services. All you have to do is email kimology411@gmail.com and someone will contact you about letting us help you grow nationally. Okay, I want to thank our sponsors for helping make this podcast possible. 3 months ago, I made some changes, and one was that I have value and others see that value. And that's why I was excited when I started going and looking for supporters for the podcast, and I started actually getting yeses and not nos. I had to start looking outside of my hometown, though. One of my jobs is to help businesses grow, so I hope you take the time to listen and support those who are working hard to help make our world a better place and following their dreams in being superstars just like me on the internet. Okay, Tyson, the other day, I met a couple girls at an event that I was at, and they had just started a new nonprofit for victims of stalking.
Okay.
And then I met a gentleman at another event who is in the process of making a nonprofit for veterans that deal with PTSD. And so then I'm also dealing with some nonprofits that have been around for a while who are struggling. And so I wanted to do a part on nonprofits. This time we're going to talk about the nonprofit part, and then next week we're going to talk more on the donors. But I want everyone to kind of understand a little bit about a nonprofit, because I think a lot of people don't really understand nonprofits, like what they can and can't do. It's not easy to get a nonprofit, but I believe that the majority of nonprofits are not doing it right. They're not doing it right. So first of all, when you're wanting to start a nonprofit, you do not own that nonprofit. Meaning you have a great idea and you're like, I want to start a nonprofit and I want to feed the poor. It's just the easiest one. You don't own that. You have to build a board, and you are the executive director, but the board runs it, and then you have to have term limits. So reality is you can be a founder, but you cannot be an owner. That's how nonprofits are.
Term limits in which fashion? In the executive fashion?
For the
or in the board
for the board. So an executive director could be there forever.
Okay.
But a board could get rid of them. And even if they're the founder, they could get rid of them. Donations can restrict what you do with your business. And the myth is that nonprofits cannot make a profit. That always cracks me up when I start going into these nonprofits to fix their accounting, because that's normally what I do. Is I'm hired to go in where they have had someone who didn't know nonprofit accounting trying to take care of these grants, and I have to go in and fix the accounting because they need better reporting. And so they'll go, well, we can't make a profit. That's not what it means. Like if somebody's going to walk in and you've got a $200,000 budget and someone says, I'm going to give you $1 million, you don't have to say, no, we can't take that money because we can't spend it this year. We can't carry any money over. That is not true. It's the nonprofit can have reserved money. It is not called a profit, though.
Okay, so when your example, 200,000 versus the million that somebody was that what you said? Mm-hmm. So you're saying, though, at first the point was the 800,000. You said that you're not there for profit. So you're talking about differences in terminology? Mm-hmm. Okay, go ahead.
Right, yeah. So they could put that into another fund, and then they could grow their mission. They could add a mission. It's not going, normally if that person gave them $1 million, they'd be like, this has to go to feed the poor. And it only can buy food. That's how you can restrict your donations. You can tell a nonprofit what they can do with your money.
But if they wanted to somehow make some type of, we thought we only had 200,000, but we just got $1 million instead, they could increase their scope that year.
They could increase it that year if they wanted to, or they could carry it over. They could invest it. They could do what they want to so that they always have the money to continue their mission in case another grant falls through or something.
Right. But the big thing is if some private corporation got that, I always hear, I don't like business law very much, but the obligation is to the shareholders, blah,
right.
blah, blah.
Right.
That's not the case.
Nope.
So it's not as though, hey, you got $800,000 more, and so somebody should see more of that in their pockets. It's towards it's the mission.
Nope. It is
the mission.
Yeah, and unless someone said, hey, I want to give that executive director a $20,000 bonus, they'd have to figure something out. I've never had that happen before, but not very many people want to pay admin. That's one of the problems with nonprofits is people come in and say, I don't want this to go to admin. Okay, well, how are we going to pay the people to do the project when we have no admin money? So that gets,
some reasonable cost should go there.
Right. So anyway, a for-profit, they want to maximize the profit and they want to minimize costs. And they want to pay the owners more money, and of course, you just said the shareholders. So they're looking to cut the costs, make more money, and at the end of the year, give out their $22 million bonuses and their $50,000 bonuses and all that kind of stuff. And that's a for-profit business.
And you said in this case, you may have been the founder, but you may not even be associated with that after a certain period of time, and the board does the right, and you couldn't do that easily. You couldn't get rid of the founder owner.
Right.
Basically, you couldn't with a for-profit if it was owned by that person.
Right. It depends. Well, it also depends on a for-profit. If it's a corporation and there's a board, they can. So if you look at like businesses like
they get them off the exec, but they can't take them off as owners, so they always
but they might not be an owner. Because if they're publicly sold stock, then they have stock. So then the owner, they lose all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So a lot of the bigger companies, they don't have an owner. So you might have been the founder. That's a word for both of them. And you might have 51% of the stock. And so, yeah, they're not going to get rid of you because you have a majority ownership in the company. But in a nonprofit, you don't have any of that kind of stuff. The nonprofit wants their revenues to be higher than costs. That's what they're looking for. And they normally have to keep the admin costs low so more money can go to the mission.
Yeah, when I was looking into this, they have a pretty usual conversation around that, like how low is too low, because you want to have your mission, but you don't want to exploit a lot of people who, volunteer. A lot of them are volunteering, and then some of them are working maybe at lower wages than you might expect out of the goodness of their heart.
Right.
So it seems to me, and just looking at this semi-briefly, that's always kind of like nonprofits feel a little guilty about it. What is that balance between trying to keep costs low and also, paying your people what they... You've heard some fields just don't pay, and it's almost like you're supposed to do it out of the goodness of your heart and be struggling for your entire life.
Right.
I'm talking low-level people. Some of these executives make a lot of money. So as far as the big nonprofits, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, and nonprofits have gotten in trouble in the past because they have paid their leaders that are working a lot of money, but it gets into the like if they're getting paid what everyone in their job is getting paid at a for-profit, nobody goes into nonprofit accounting and wants to be poor.
Right.
And so you have to it's got to be a competitive rate. And so that's kind of what you do.
For the executives.
Exactly. Yeah.
Board, there's a big distinction.
The board of a nonprofit cannot be paid. There's no money on a board of a nonprofit. It is strictly prohibited. I'd actually had I'm an accountant for a very small nonprofit, and they were trying to do some grants, and it came down to it that because I was at the board meetings, I got mentioned, and the person put me down as I was attending, and it was under the board. They just forgot to put accountant on there, and it just became a big hoopla because you're on the board and you're doing that. Well, no, you can't. You don't have I can't vote to pay my. I can't do that. That's not a nonprofit.
There's an interest, a self-interest thing, but you say it's restricted. It's not from my research into it. It's not restricted by law unless the
nonprofit
state does.
You cannot be on a nonprofit. You can get a stipend, like you can get paid for to go something, but you can't get a salary to be on a board on a nonprofit.
Well, the problem is I've got examples that are what I thought was going to be one of the diversions over people that it's like, hey, you're paying an awful lot to that board for them only meeting 2 hours a week or 6 hours a week. And so this is more than just meals and board. It's some...
Yeah, that's...
So, in some places, I thought this might be a diversion.
Yeah.
Some people at some of these big nonprofits will get $30,000 to $40,000 a year on the board, and just as board members, not as the execs. And then that comes up in news, isn't that a little bit much? They're not supposed to get much financial incentive at all, and they're making more. Some of them are making more than I do working where I work, just to show up for 6 hours, 2 hours to 6 hours a week.
I've seen
that's another. As I see it, there's this great quick aside. Where I looked was this. There's one site. It's called Nonprofit Quarterly, and it actually has a lot of good articles if you want to brush up on this. And they definitely talk because, nonprofits, they're trying to worry about the morals and their missions a little bit more than for-profit. And they have a lot of, oh boy, kind of, is this a moral dilemma type situations?
Right.
They do some reporting on there. But yeah, usually, and what I read it is not that it's prohibited, but that it is, there is some kind of a moral limit. And then you can put it into your bylaws.
Right.
And then it also states, and if you make too much as a board member, you have to file a 1099?
1099, yeah, over $600.
Yeah,
and I've seen some board member, I've done some taxes for people that are on a board, but they're minimal, and they pay them for the gas, and they pay them for a little bit, and it might be $500 or something, which is kind of weird for me because with my situation, it got brought up and they were like, no, you cannot be paid for being on a board. So maybe it depends on if you're a 501c3 or a 501, because there's so many different 501. A 501c3 is totally different. So you have a non-for-profit, you have a non-profit, you have multiple levels. So I bet that the nonprofits that they're on, they're probably not 501c3s. So
yeah, maybe not. Maybe
there
that's
could be a
distinction
different,
because they were clearly using the term definitely nonprofit, but none of the several articles that were kind of the current controversies made that distinction.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to hear if somebody out there is listening to this.
We'll do a diversion.
Yeah, we can talk. I'll look that up a little bit more to find out what that is. So anyway, let's make some money here. Nonprofits, they're making money on donations, which is going to be next week. We're going to be talking about donations. Fees.
I've got some questions next week.
Okay.
I do.
We got fees. They have grants and they have subscriptions. Now this gets a little bit weird to me, because when we tried to get a nonprofit status for one of our art, we had a what do you call a gallery. So in our building, we had all these different rooms, and we had local artists, and we were trying to do a nonprofit to allow these artists to come in, and we didn't think that we were doing anything wrong. And then one of our board president actually had put up online a gallery so that they could all submit some of their art to this gallery. And if you wanted to buy the art, then you could buy the art, but it wasn't coming to us. It was literally just promoting those people.
Facilitation, kind of. So
and that was a no-no. Like when we applied for our application, came back and said, we went online and we went to your website, and there's this thing on there about you promoting and selling this art stuff, and you can't do that.
And you thought the distinction would be, it's not, we don't make money off of it. But maybe the concern is, yeah, but do you have some kind of a connection? Does that, it's kind of like institutional control with college sports. It's like, yeah, but you'd be too tempted because of that. Maybe it's something like that.
And we didn't understand it because we weren't even doing the site anymore. It just didn't get taken off of our website. So I always tell people that if you are doing a nonprofit, do not put up your website. And if you do, put minimal stuff until you get your 501c3, because they're going to go and they're going to search the web for you. They're going to look at your Facebook. They're going to look all over. This was a learning experience for us because we never did the 501c3, and ended up having an art district come into our community, and it took all of our artists away from us and took them over to the art district. And so we went back to offices. We rented out to offices.
So maybe had it been on, so this is my very layperson's distinction, I think might be true, that no artist wants to say, oh, just whatever donation you'd like to give me. They want to have actual amounts on their art. And that might be a big distinction, is when you can say donation as you see fit.
But there's other nonprofit art galleries where there's prices and they just pay for the art. So I don't know what we did wrong. Like, I don't know what we checked a box wrong, or like we said before, they're not a 501c3. They're a 501 whatever else they are that allows you to do that, because I know so many different nonprofits that sell things, but when I was doing my research, it was like, you're not selling a product. You're doing a service for the community. So one of ours, we would help pay rent, or we would feed the poor, or we had a clothing bank, or we gave you a food box, or we did job training, or youth court is one of the things that we do here. So if your kid at a certain age before they become an adult gets a ticket, we can take it to youth court in front of a bunch of youth, and they do community service. It doesn't go on your record. You pay the fee, and they're judged in front of their peers. It's a program that was one of our nonprofits. So those are services. I get that, but then a couple of the places open up like stores, and I'm thinking,
next week's will be interesting because I have this type of a question and a very specific example. I feel like that one could be that you didn't put a price on a particular transaction. You just got the money through any number of donations, and then you provided a service back out to the community. So that's apparently why that was okay.
Well, I was going to say, I think we had it to where they paid us a commission.
Oh.
And so maybe that was, but like, how do we get paid? Like, that was their donation. So anyway, I think it was all in our wording. So if you're starting up a nonprofit, you need to remember that everything you do, the IRS will look into that. So you need to make sure that go to your attorney, go to your person that's doing the nonprofit, and check yourself out, because they want to make sure that you're doing it right. And it is getting a little bit harder to get them, because everybody wants to do a nonprofit. And that's when it goes back to when I tell them, you understand you don't own this, right? Like, it's not a business.
Back to your original question, if I could, what was your quick, unless this is toward the end, why did we think people were this was being more popular just because it's the thing to do, or is there some other incentive?
It's everybody always says, I've been into like 9 meetings, and out of 9 of them, 7 of them said we should see if we can make this a nonprofit. And I'll tell you why they want to make it a nonprofit is because corporations have separate money in their foundations that they can get for a nonprofit, and you have to be a 501c3.
Oh, I definitely know corporations definitely do their share of
Correct.
that on the side, as opposed to just a person individually, separately, just wanting to, from the ground up, only start a nonprofit. So you're right. That's an interesting thing. And then the whole political and taxable stuff, too,
right?
is
And that gets a little confusing. But at a business, they have advertising, marketing budget, and they can use that advertising. So, like, I had a community calendar that I went and I asked them for money, and it would have come out of their marketing budget. And in one of my meetings, they said, if you were a nonprofit, we could get you money through our foundation, but we don't have it for marketing because of our multi-million-dollar campaign of like the big time stuff. This doesn't fall under marketing. This would be there. So I could have probably went and made my website a nonprofit, but then we're getting into, I have to have a board. I just want to put events on a calendar, but it's brought up to people. So when they start a business and they go, this is the business that I want to get into, these corporations that they're going to and they're saying, I have this great idea. I want to.
It's part of their recommendation.
They go, well, we have money in our foundation. Too bad you're not a nonprofit. And they go, well, let me look into a nonprofit. And then they go, there's all this money out there. There's all this money. And that's what we're going to talk about later is that's not necessarily true. So
it's a recommendation.
Correct.
That when people go to start their business, that they should also have some associated nonprofit.
Right.
And then B, I had this on the tip of my tongue. What was another incentive to do it? Is there another incentive? Do you think that's the main incentive?
I think the main thing is that they believe that they're going to get money through donations and through foundations because it's tax deductible, which is a bunch of hocus pocus. I mean, that's like I said, that'll be next week. We'll talk about that. So they're getting their money through donations and fees and grants, subscriptions, and all that kind of stuff. And a for-profit, they're basically selling products and services. And so they can sell as much as they want, whatever they want. They're in control of all of that, and nobody really cares. So for the record keeping, and that's kind of where I come in, the for-profit business, they're private, and they're not required to give everyone their info unless they become, there's some companies out there, I believe maybe the public ones, you can submit a request and then so long later. But here's the thing with a nonprofit. The nonprofit must give you the information requested in 30 days because their information is public. And I have worked with many nonprofits all over the United States that when I go in there, they are so top secret about who makes what. And that's the first thing I tell them, that everyone here can know how much you make. And they're not happy with me. And I'm like, but it's on the 990. Like, it's public. You can go online. You can request it from the IRS. And it says on there, the executive director makes this much money. It's public. Your money is public. There is nothing private.
But on top of that, specifically, if requested, the nonprofit itself must get that information.
Yeah.
If someone requests from the nonprofit that information,
yes,
follow up.
If there's a nonprofit, you can request in writing, I'd like to see your balance sheet for the last 6 months. I'd like to see your income and expense. It's not a profit and loss statement. It's an income and expense. There's another name they call it. I call it income and expense. You have money coming in and you have expenses. And you can request that. You can say, how much does this person make? That's all public record of a nonprofit. So when someone is wanting to start a nonprofit, that's another thing they don't realize is that, I've got my business here and someone comes in and goes, hey, Kim, how much money did you make last year?
Business.
And I don't want to tell them $10.3 million. That's embarrassing.
Right.
Okay, so if I made $10.3 million,
You must have a hidden compound in here I haven't seen yet. Go ahead. I can't wait to check out the pool.
I like to live like Sam Walton. I like to live very simple. So anyway, that is very, very interesting that I don't think a lot of people realize. And the weird thing about it is that when I go into the nonprofits and I'm telling them this, even the executive directors don't understand it.
Well, I got one for you, and it may fall through the idea you had earlier, 501c3 or some other type.
3B,
right. But I've got some information on, some of this diversion of maybe talking about how some people seem to be overcompensating their board, and they release some information 1 year, but the same organization says they wouldn't release them for the next 2 years.
And that's,
so I don't know.
That's
maybe they don't realize that maybe the requester doesn't realize this. So.
I was gonna say, and so I did look at that because those records are now. I don't know exactly like if everything would be there. If like you can't, I would say that you can't go in and ask for private personnel records.
Right, but
when it comes to money, that's private. It's not private. It's public. And so. Anyway, so the for-profit, those are run by the owners or shareholders or all that kind of stuff. Nonprofits are not owned by anyone. I cannot stress that enough because I've had conversations before because they're wanting to open up their nonprofit and it's for the donation part. And I'm like, okay, so, like, you're not the owner. No, I'm the owner. Like, you're not the owner. Like, don't even use that word because that's going to not get you a nonprofit status because you're not an owner. You are an executive director, the president, the whatever your title is. In
15 years, the most you might have associated with this is that you're on their little page that says history of the nonprofit. Right.
You are the founder.
That's all.
You are the founder.
You have
exactly. You are the founder. Nonprofit boards. The board is actually your boss. So the executive director runs the employees and runs the agency, but the board is your boss. Okay? So now we're going to talk about starting a nonprofit. First of all, when you start a nonprofit, you have to realize that you are going to have a board. And there's a bunch of paper stuff.
I never thought of this. Another part of this is that if you're looking to show your charitable side, and even a resume builder, as long as you're being somewhat honest with it, because you're not supposed to be compensated, you might be able to get on a board of some people that you know, and then you're on a board of directors.
Right.
Sounds a little bit different than I just work at this one job,
Yep.
And I've never thought of the idea that someone's on the board when I hear people I know on the board and thought of it in this context.
Right.
They have to have all these qualifications and they're making extra, whatever, 20, 50,000 on the side. And it's like, no, you can be on the board as that advisory. I say advisor. It's not really advisor because, as you say, it tells the executive director what to do if that is necessary.
Correct.
But, think of it that way, too. This is an opportunity for you to see if anybody you know does have a nonprofit and actually check in. And it doesn't require a qualification.
No. But if you're starting your nonprofit, you need to find a board that is willing to put in the time and that's willing to lead the organization. All right. I'm going to go through a few things and then we're going to touch on some of these topics. They need to be willing to help find donations. Don't fill your board with your best friends. And
So
I'll
do
tell
you
you
mean
why.
by that, like early on, before realize that
This is just
your
starting.
board? Yeah, just starting.
This is
you
just
don't really
starting.
have a group or a staff yet.
Right.
So it's important that early on the board kind of helps you gain traction.
Right.
Gotcha.
Okay. And then you need people that have connections to money and that you incorporate. So it's very important. That's very important. A lot of people go out and get an LLCs and all that kind of stuff. You are incorporated. So you would go in Kansas, you go to the Secretary of State and you would incorporate yourself.
Wait, the distinction, what did you just mean by the distinction between that and LLC?
Okay, so LLC is kind of like the low man on the totem pole. When you're on a board, being incorporated takes all of the liability off of you.
So the distinction was, don't think that you can be a nonprofit and not be incorporated, but you're losing out on important aspects if you do. And if you're only an LLC, you just mean, for lack of a better term, incorporate's the right word.
Yeah.
But it's the same idea legally. If you have a business, corporation takes the legal liability off of you.
Right.
So in this case, you're incorporating for purposes of a nonprofit.
Right.
And taking the legal liability off of you, but LLC won't necessarily do that.
No, and
Gotcha.
LLCs are basically for just like partnerships and sole proprietors and stuff like that. It gives you a little bit of legal standing. It's not the best, but there's a whole different thing. Nonprofits, you have a board. LLCs do not have a board. You are incorporated. So you want to be incorporated. It doesn't cost anything different to be incorporated. It's the same thing. It's just you want it to be name incorporated. That is very, very, very important. Okay, so it helps keep the boards from being liable. Make sure you have checked to see if any other organization in your community is doing the same mission. Because duplicate services is a fight for low funds that we already have, and there's no reason that you continually do what other people are doing. And a lot of people, it's just funny, in our community, they'll come and they'll go, you know what I want to do? I want to set up a place where it's safe for abusive parent to meet the spouse with their child and make it a safe
like the
place.
Police station?
That or Lifehouse, and like we have
number.
like there's a nonprofit doing that. Oh, I didn't know. So do research on your community to make sure that you know.
It could be that maybe you're perfect to be on the board of one of those places instead of having to.
Exactly. Well, but then you have
so that you get some of the consolidation. Because, listen, it happens. I know I always go back to sports, but for perception, a lot of millionaire athletes are millionaire athletes and they've got off time. And it's just been kind of a tradition. It's not a requirement that they start their little nonprofits. They came from, downtown Cleveland.
right.
Or now they're in Kansas City and they want to start up the, Billy, club for... Billy Club. Billy's Boxing Club.
There you go.
For disadvantaged youth. So, but then you get all these athletes all having these separate nonprofits, and you just
Right.
kind of wonder what's the efficiency of that.
Exactly.
There's some there's some happy medium with that.
Right.
And so
And-
you have to kind of find that in your own community, same as you would in a business in a way.
I also think it has to do with ego as well, because that one person wants to save the world, and so they're kind of
get their name
blindsided.
attached to
Yeah. And I'm more like someone will come and say, I've got this idea and we should do this and this. And I'm like, well, call this person, because that's already been happening. And so that's why a lot of people come to me in our community, because I know every organization that we have. And so when someone comes in, I might tell them, instead of opening up a brand new one, why don't you add your leg to this one, because they go together. And
Do you know about the Tyson's Taco nonprofit?
what?
Oh, it's huge.
You have a Tyson taco nonprofit?
No, I don't have that.
Are you thinking about it?
No. Unless I can get donations to eat tacos.
Eat tacos.
Anyway, go ahead, continue. Sorry.
Okay. So anyway, then once you've looked at your community and you're like, nobody else has this idea, go find on the internet, find someone that's maybe doing kind of what you're doing in another state. I do this with all my businesses. So when they come to me and they want to start a business, just a regular business in Topeka, I tell them who else does it. And I'm going to use, this is just generic. I did not work with this, but let's say that, 25 years ago, you decided, I'm going to start a recycling business. I'm going to buy a truck and I'm going to have people pay so much per month. And I'm going to go by twice a month and pick up their recycling. I'm going to give them a bin. And this is what I want to do. They would come to me and I would say, does anybody else do this? And they would say, no. I'm like, great. So now you need to go to a place that does it. Find someone who's small like
really
you.
Competitors.
Not
but
like
because
waste
they've
management.
They've got the generous heart. They're a
Right,
nonprofit. Might be happy to help you understand.
Help pick it up.
The ins and outs.
They can show you, or they can say, run. This is not a good idea.
Just between you and
Yeah,
me. Door closes, whisper starts.
It's harder than you think it is, or it's awesome and they'll mentor you. But always,
Always
be
a good idea.
willing to find somebody else. Very, very important, and not just because I am an accountant. Have an accountant that knows nonprofit accounting. It took me a while. I actually got trained on nonprofit accounting when I got a contract work at Miniger's when they were in Topeka.
By the way, if you don't know, I'm not from Topeka. This is to the audience. It turns out that Topeka, it was in a way world famous, or at least national famous, but Menninger's clinic was a big deal. Do yourself a favor and go check that out. I mean, there would be stars, movie stars, coming to little old Topeka, Kansas,
walking around
for mental, for that stuff.
Yeah,
psychiatry and such.
And they had the hospital part that dealt with a bunch of psychiatric, anorexia and all that kind of stuff. Then they had the foundation as well. So when I got that contract job right out of college, Kelly, she basically trained me on nonprofit accounting. And I was just a temporary for 2.5 years because they were moving to Houston and everybody kept quitting. So Kim started out as a staff accountant. Then I did human resources and staff accountant. And then I got another one of the accounting jobs. And then I trained everybody. And so I got so much knowledge about how to do nonprofit accounting. And so then that led me into learning more and more. And then I just learned how to read. So I know church accounting, which is totally different than any other nonprofit accounting.
Wait a second.
When it comes to payroll.
Rewind. During this time, you also learned how to read? That was really glad that... Oh, that's not... I thought I heard that for a second.
I don't think you heard that.
That was really a good...
I learned how to read it.
Anyway, go ahead. No, that sounds like a very cool...
But make sure that you have an accountant that knows what's going on, because if not, you're going to hire me to come in and redo your entire QuickBooks. And I've actually had to go back 4 years with 4 companies and rebuild every single thing because they were getting ready to lose all their money because they didn't have their reports for the grants. And when they got audited, they were expected to have all this stuff, and I had to come in, and I hired someone to come in with me because I can't do all the data entry myself. And what another CPA firm said was going to take about 2 years, I got done in 9 months. So we got everything taken care of. That's a whole nother story on that location, but I got them up to where they needed.
You get a lot of privileges with that classification, but with anything, it means that you have to show it if you're asked.
Right.
And that becomes tough for small business owners or nonprofit people if you're not big enough to have the room or the department that does that, such that you're doing it in a very formal and systemized way regularly.
Right.
You're smaller than that. Your books can be a nightmare.
Yeah, and
maybe nobody asks you, but if they do,
it's big time. I mean, it's a lot worse being a nonprofit, not having your stuff together when you're getting federal funds, state funds. Ooh. And if you're getting any federal or state, if you're getting federal funds, you're paying for an audit. So you're going to have a CPA firm come in and they're going to audit everything and they're going to look everything with a fine-tooth comb and they're going to charge you a lot of money for messed up records. And that's why I go in and I get it ready to go and I get it ready for the audits so that when the auditors come in, they're just like, boom, 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 boom. Here it is. And they go.
As a tease for this then, because you said the next thing is donations, but I can imagine just as a context, you get it going, you're feeling pretty good. You're getting local stuff. You're getting state stuff. You haven't delved into federal, which scares you a little bit more. And some of this is semi-informal. But you're getting it, and you feel like, hey, they gave it to me.
Right.
But in some of those transactions, it has to be memorialized a little bit more than money exchange hands because you had something on a corner where somebody said, hey, yeah, that's great, $20 for you. It has to be memorialized more than that, and you kind of forget about that because your initial push was pretty local and fairly informal. And then before you know it, you don't have what you need.
So if you go in like a nonprofit and you're like, we're gonna do a fundraiser because we need a new air conditioner. And they go out and they do a golf tournament that says we're gonna do an air conditioner. The money raised at that golf tournament goes to the air conditioner, and it's got to be tracked that way. Right. And you've got to keep track of it because at any time. But when you go into, let's say, the federal government, and the federal government comes in and tells you that you've got to do this, this, and this with the money, and that's it, then you have to submit your reports to the federal government, and you've got to show them everything. And then when they send an auditor in, if somebody comes in, those numbers have to be real. You can't just, and there's been times where they just put it in an Excel spreadsheet and just send it in. They're like, well, they gave us $8,000 so for books, so $8,000 for books, and they just send it in, and they're like,
that matched pretty way too exactly.
Maybe we need to see the QuickBooks thing on that. And then they're like, oh, so then they go into do a journal entry in QuickBooks, and I've seen it all. I've been all over the place. And so they don't try to do anything wrong. They just, a lot of times, don't have the money and understand. And the executive director is very important in an organization, but your accountant is just as important. I mean, started, and I've got a couple nonprofits right now. They're very, very small, 1 or 2 people. And in Topeka, where I live, I don't even charge them until they're up and going. I'm like, nope, we're going to start. We're getting your QuickBooks going. I'm balancing you. We're gonna start the process. You are exactly right. The right habits. And so
if we start you on the right habits, it's gonna be better for all of us later on, and you'll stick with
exactly.
me.
And then we have a couple more things. We have a grant writer. You're writing grants. You can't do everything as an executive director. Find a grant writer. And there's a tons of different ones that are out there.
And they're not full-time. It's just that
they're not
you
full-time.
Can pay them for the
well, there's limits.
task.
There's limits to that as well. They can make like a percentage
Freelance.
of the grant. It can make like if they get the grant, they can get like 10%, 5%. I'm not exactly sure the legalities. I'd have to look on it because I think different places with grants, they can get paid, but there's
It's like anything when you have to submit. If you go, you have to kind of know the ins and outs of how to do that most efficiently. You're going to take potentially 50 times as long as someone who knows how to do it.
Right.
It is. Now, if you eventually learn that and but early on, that's going to save you a lot of time.
I know some grants that probably take about 2.5 days to fill out, and you have to do that every year, and they're just horrible. It's like the same thing 12 times on 13 different pages. And you're like, you've already asked me this. And then you have to do, I mean, but I think they try to make it complicated so that you've got to be like, you really want that $500 to spend that much time on it.
And they're thinking the same thing. It's like, well, why would we want to make it easy? Because we don't necessarily want everybody and their brother applying for the same grant. So it's kind of a self-screening process a little bit.
Yeah, I have filled out so many grants, and then, like the executive director, she fills out her part or he fills out his part, and then they hand it over to me to fill in the balance sheet or to fill in the expenses or fill in the budget, and then it comes over and goes, it'll say, it's right now it's 2019, and then it'll say, what's your budget for 2020 and what's your budget for 2021? I don't even know what we're doing in 19, but I have to literally budget out 2 years. And then it says, okay, from last time that we gave you money for 18, how did you spend that money? So now you're doing 18, 19, 20, 21, and you're like, this is crazy. So you should know a grant writer to help out with that. And then also to find donors and stuff like that, you need to do some gatherings and invent and
So not an introvert field.
no,
At least not early.
not early. You can't, you have to get out. You got to have people come in, see what you're doing. And that's also a good way. When I've been on one board in my life, I serve on the advisory committees, as you were talking earlier, different than the board. I don't have a vote. I refuse to sacrifice and have to give up so many. Oh, I've been on 2 boards. I'm sorry. I was on business improvement for downtown Topeka. But this was my nonprofit board that she had a big meeting and she invited like 50 people that she knew that had all different backgrounds. And then we had to fill out an application. And then she went through the application and then she met with all of us all together. And then she set up interviews and then she picked like 9 people to be on her board. And it was funny because one of my friends from high school is actually on the same board. And what she did was family counseling. And I was like, okay, I'll do this because it's a brand new board. And then she wanted me to be treasurer because I have the money background, but then she wanted me to do the accounting for it and I refused. I said, I need segregation of duties. And as a board member, I can't do, I mean, I maybe could. You
can't have too much financial.
I don't want to because I get paid for accounting regardless.
Well, and the other thing is that you don't want to be the board member that doesn't want to do something too complicated because it means it's going to be really complicated for you for another reason.
Yeah.
Anything like that becomes a little tricky.
And when you do your job, I get paid for my job. There's like one thing in this world that I have to get paid for. It's accounting. Everything else I do, a lot of stuff I don't get paid for. So I was like, nope, I'm not doing that. So I did join that board and she lasted a couple years. It was very, very hard. We tried as much as we possibly could. Just trying to get people to do it. The program that she did was like Love and Logic, but then churches started doing it. And so now you've got churches kind of competing with, some of the stuff you're doing. And so she finally gave that up. But anyway, so to one of the things I really, really want to touch on, and then we'll be done and we'll go into next episode. But when you are building your board, what I find is that most board members they don't understand the importance of their position or their job. And that there's a few things that you need. First of all, you need to be at the board meetings. Secondly, you need to be at the events. So you need to actually go to the things that they do, golf tournaments or motorcycles, or they have all these different little events to raise money. Board members need to be there. But the one thing that gets me is that most board members do not know how to read financials. And so I totally believe that you should go to the library or go to your chamber and you need to see if there is an actual class to teach you how to do a nonprofit board member and how to read financials. So you know what the income and expense are. You know what to look for. You understand what's put in front of you so that you can ask me questions and then have me make corrections every month.
So that you have proper oversight
Correct.
As a board member.
Right.
It's really, you're not there 40 hours a week. You're there a couple times a quarter or something,
Right.
probably, or 3 or 4, once a month, maybe It's some of them that are especially active once a week maybe, but you're talking 2 hours a week or something.
Right.
So if you don't know how to properly oversight, that's exactly your job. It's not just a title.
Right. So as a board member, those are the biggest things. Is if you are too busy and you just want to put this on your resume, stay away. Secondly, as an executive director or as a board, when you're building your board, you need to bring people who are influential in your community onto your board because they're the ones that have the access to money. So you want to make sure that you have the energy company or you have a media, if you've got like a television or radio or something that can help promote what you're doing. Have somebody from those places on your board. If you're just going to get your high school friends and they're all going to come on there and they're all stay-at-home moms, you're not going to get what you need from them as a board member because you need money. And
you could have different aspects, but that has to be one of the main ones you're thinking about.
Right, yeah.
And maybe you do just have someone who you know is really smart and detailed.
Exactly.
That helps cover something. But if you miss that money connection part.
The money, yeah. And so, if you look at some different boards and you can go look at the 990s and it shows you who's on there and which company, these companies, they want their employees to serve on boards. There are companies out there that literally will pay them and will donate for every hour that board member does something for your organization. They'll donate money to the organization. So if the board member
gets tricky.
If the board member comes in and says, I'm going to do the golf tournament and it's from 1 to 5, there's 4 hours, they can submit a request to their company, and their company will send a $40 check or a $100 check as a donation to them, which just gives you even more money because it's just a donation.
That makes me worried a little bit, but I'd have to understand the transparency of it because, and as a layperson, I'm probably going to add to the next one we have just kind of like a questions from a layperson,
right? Or
related concerns type of a thing. Because this has been a good intro for me, and I think a good intro for a lot of people. But I have more questions, but I don't want to make the episode
yes,
longer,
oh yeah,
so
we'll have plenty enough time next time. Next time we'll probably just be on this subject. We'll maybe talk about a couple things. I don't know what else, but so anyway, those are just important. So today, what we were talking about is those people who are wanting to start a nonprofit for them to understand what they're getting themselves into. Secondly, people that are wanting to participate with a nonprofit, a 501c3, make sure that you're responsible because there's just so many times that if it doesn't fit in your schedule, then don't do it. You honestly are hurting the organization by not being there. And you do an event and none of your board members show up. As an executive director, you're kind of like a slap in the face.
Not a great perception.
Right. And so
optics is what I was looking for earlier. Not good optics.
Not good. And that's very important to nowadays nonprofits because there's so many out there. They're fighting over the same amount of money. And next week we're going to talk about the donors. And so our next episode, we're going to talk about donors and why you should donate from the heart and not your tax return. And why
sometimes it makes sense, right? Anyway, go ahead.
And why many have been confused by nonprofits saying tax deductible donation.
I'm confused by that. That's going to be one of my follow-up questions.
Awesome. Well, we will talk about that. So anyway, thank you so much for giving us the time. We appreciate our listeners and excited that our show is growing so fast. Make sure to comment in our Facebook group, Chemology 411. And if you haven't joined yet, you really should. Because people are now, I put things in there and you are commenting so that we will bring it over to other shows. Thank you, Tyson, for helping make Chemology 411 so awesome.
Yes, I was wondering, we might do a diversion, just so you know.
Excursion. We're not... That's it. You're going to get it. We're only on episode 3.
I was initially calling our show the wrong thing also. So there's that.
He's just seeing if I'm on my toes.
An excursion.
We
I
could.
thought you gave me a look when I said diversion earlier, and I didn't pick up on it because that one didn't even sound even close to wrong to me. I was wondering. Anyway, we might do an excursion.
Okay, we can do an excursion
on some of this little information I found.
All right.
But we don't know that yet. We'll talk about it, and if we decide it was okay, we'll post it. So
yeah, you'll
possibly
just pay
look
attention.
for an excursion on the idea around whether some companies overpay their boards. I've just got a few interesting things.
Actually, I want to do an excursion on that because I want to look it up. We'll stop this, and I'm going to look a couple things up. I want to see if it's a 501c or 501, like what it is, because there's so many 501s out there that I think that's the difference. I think we're talking different.
Probably.
A different
We could
thing.
lead with just the stuff I found and then decide. You can then go
could look it up
to see if you understand the distinction.
Yeah, definitely. So anyway, all right. So go ahead and look for not a diversion, but an excursion.
Yes, and also I am trying to come up with what the next Scales of Truth show is. I had it was really comprehensive, glyphosate. And now it's interesting because you see, it's kind of like when you get a car and then you recognize that car all over the place and you never recognized it before. If any guys have listened to my glyphosate episode, you'll see it's all over the place, all over the news, it's all over infomercials.
You started a trend. It's all you.
Monsanto's trying to act like it doesn't exist, but it exists. So I've just got, once you put down a really comprehensive show, you're like, well, geez, can I just go back to the silly sports shows? And I might, because I've not put anything out in a couple weeks. But look for that. I'll try to be trying to put up at least just kind of a fun, quick social commentary one, if nothing else, here in the next week. So I will be putting out another one for Scales of Truth.
And that's a Facebook page, so make sure you go look at that. And then which mediums are you on? You are on sound? No. What did you move to? I just
went to Audio Boom. Is that right?
Audio Boom?
Anyway, it feeds to several of them.
Okay.
And I had the old stuff on SoundCloud, but I ran out of memory, and that's why I had to make the decision. So the archival first 8 episodes are there. But going forward, all of them are on the new one that I think goes to Google Podcasts and other things. But if you look up Scales of Truth, Tyson Harley, it should be Google. You should get Google results. You should be able to do it.
Yes. Perfect. All right, guys. Well, we're going to talk to you soon. And as always, please keep taking your adventures. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week. I guess we won't see them, will we? I guess we'll talk to them next week, right?
Yeah, we'll talk to you next week.
I'll see you, but they won't see us. All right. Bye, guys.